everyone, and welcome to the 1 Hour series. My name is Julia Gorban, and today we will be discussing Broadway. We'll be talking about the audition process, rehearsal process, and the opening night, and how to audition for Broadway, rehearse on Broadway, and what it's like to perform on Broadway. We will also discuss some regional theaters, international productions, and compare those to Broadway. So get your questions ready. Make sure to put any questions you have in comments. Our special guest today, guest speaker, is Michael Lavine, coming back from one of our previous streams. He's one of Broadway's top vocal coaches and actually has one of the world's biggest sheet music collections. I'm sure Michael will show us some of his sheet music once he tunes in here. And also, in addition to that, Michael is kind enough to offer another draw for another coaching with him. So in order to enter the draw, all you have to do is answer questions in the comments during this stream. And every time you answer a question, you get entered into the draw. Now, for those who didn't watch last stream with Michael and don't know Michael yet, you will in a second. But also, I would like to mention that Michael has worked with a lot of stars such as Kelli O'Hara, Sutton Foster, also Kristin Chenoweth. So he's got a wealth of information to share with us. So without further ado, let's welcome Michael. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for doing this again and offering another great session.
Oh, my pleasure. I had a lovely time with the woman who won the last session, Angelica, who was just fantastic. I love her, and I hope I get to see her again. And maybe she's here tonight watching.
Possibly. She had a lot of good things to say about the last stream, so she's possibly watching. If you are, hello, Angel, and hello, everybody else. Now, Michael, during my intro, I mentioned your sheet music collection. So now I think we have to show everybody what it looks like, because when we tuned in with Michael today, his background was his wall of sheet music. So I was like, we have to show that to everybody on the stream. So, Michael, if you don't mind, can you just maybe give us a quick glimpse into what your music collection looks like?
Of course, you can see behind me, you can see this, there's some of it is right here behind me. I have all these file cabinets that have been built in to the wall, and they house the sheet music. So if you pull out one of these file cabinets, I pull out a random sheet. Here's a sheet of Judy Garland and Presenting Lily Mars. This is an example of one of the sheet musics, pieces of sheet music. This is the song When I Look at You by Walter German and Paul Francis Webster. And I just like showing people wonderful songs that they wouldn't know. What was the one I just showed you a minute ago? I just showed you a song from a show called Poppy, which starred W.C. Fields. This is a musical from yesteryear. It's from a long time ago, and this is the pianoforte selections, not by anybody you've heard of, but it's from 1924. It's the musical Poppy, and it starred W.C. Fields back in the day. And so I just love showing people fun songs that they won't know. That's just a random sampling of one of the cabinets of my sheet music. And there's bookshelves and cabinets and galore here. And I just enjoy recommending material to my students and showing them that, which is probably a good question to make, even though we're going to talk more about performances, but about singing overdone songs or singing songs that are well known or singing songs that are obscure. But and sometimes you don't want to sing an obscure song. Sometimes you want to sing a song that everybody knows. But if you want to find some great songs that not everybody sings, I can help. There you go.
Yes. So if you are the lucky winner of tonight's draw, maybe you could get Michael's help on choosing the perfect song or adding to your audition book. Or Michael, you'd also do vocal coaching, correct?
Right, and I believe at the last session I told you that I was going to offer everybody watching tonight half price. My coaching's for half price. I'm going to keep that up. So if you do want to coach with me, Julia will give you my email address, and I'll do it. I usually charge $100 an hour, but for anybody watching tonight, I'll be happy to coach you for $50 an hour, including getting you sheet music and putting it on tape for you. So there's my offer for the night, beyond the free one that somebody's done.
Thank you so much, Michael. We all really appreciate it. In addition to the free coaching, you're also offering a discount to everybody. So if anyone wants to take advantage of it, go ahead. And speaking of the draw, before we ask Michael our first question, why don't we ask our audience a question? And if you guys answer that question, you get entered into the draw. So we ask this question, I think, pretty much every time we do a draw, but it's a good one, just to get an idea of what kind of people we're having today to watch the stream and what people like, since we're talking about musicals mostly. Let us know what your favorite musical is. And if you have more than one favorite musical, which I have like 5 that I can decide between, feel free to let us know. Every time you answer a question, you get entered into the draw. And while you guys are answering comments, Michael, could we start by discussing, before we get into the whole Broadway process, discussing the different theaters or types of theaters that exist? So Broadway, regional theaters, union, non-union, international productions, stuff like that, whatever you can share with us.
And even beyond, in New York City, you're auditioning in New York City and you have a union card, you will go either to a specific rehearsal hall or a casting director's office or to Actors Equity where they have rehearsal studios, audition studios to audition. That will be, you'll get a notice in advance. You either will have an open call if you're non-union, or you don't have an agent and you just want to go to the audition. You can show up early and hang out for a while. In the old days, people would stand online outside for hours to get in the freezing cold or really, really hot. And they would get in, and somebody, they were non-union. If the audition was non-union, they knew they'd be seen. If the audition was union, they were not union, they might get seen, they might not, it depended. But then if you have an agent, you're given a specific time to go in, and you have that time, good 10 minutes to be able to present your wares, usually to sing a song you did. More and more, and today they give you material in advance to learn. They give you a song from a show, or several songs, or some sides, some actual scenes to learn for the audition. That's for a Broadway show, that could be for a national tour, but beyond that, there's also off-Broadway, and Michael Lavine, who was here the other day, also casts a lot of off-Broadway shows. Even beyond that, there's off-Broadway, and that often is delineated by the size of the house. Broadway, I believe, is $4.99 and higher, something like that, and off-Broadway is lower than that, and off-Broadway would be a smaller thing, and it would be easier to get auditions for off-Broadway theaters because the demand of the number of people auditioning would be much smaller. But you want to get there early and stand in line, or if you have an appointment, great. I'll tell you my audition story for the 5 minutes. I was an actor many years ago. I auditioned for the original production of Merrily We Roll Along on Broadway. Did I tell you this last time, Julia? I don't remember if I talked about this. But I went to an open call, and it was at the Minskoff Rehearsal Studios, which are no longer there, in the Minskoff building where Lion King was playing. And this was over 40 years ago. And I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and there wasn't anybody there yet. And I saw somebody put up a little piece of paper, nobody with names, and nobody had put their name yet. So I could have put myself as number 1, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I put myself as number 7. And I got back, and at 11 o'clock, they started the auditions, and they typed. Now, typing is something that happens when they have thousands of people auditioning. This was the new Stephen Sondheim musical, so they had all these people. So they had everybody walk in a circle. They brought in 20 people at a time and had them walk past casting directors. They wanted to cast the show with young people, and I was 18 or 19 then, so I was young, so I got typed in, but you could also be typed out. Also, sometimes they have everybody sing a couple of bars, a couple of things just in a row, and they type out and say, okay, you guys stay, it might be how you look, how old you are, what type, whether you're the right type for the show. And I got typed in, and I sang Johnny One Note. That was my song. You can actually see my audition. There's a movie called The Best Worst Thing That Ever Happened, which is on Netflix, about Merrily Roll Along, and you can watch me sing Johnny One Note in that movie if you want to. Anyway, there are also auditions for many, many more things than just Broadway and off-Broadway and off-Broadway. In New York City, for example, they audition for, well, obviously for film and TV, but they audition for productions that go overseas. Many shows are done in Germany. There used to be a lot of shows, less so now, but also in England, European tours, Asian tours at Korea and Shanghai. When I was in Shanghai, I saw both West Side Story and the producers with all English casts that had come over from the UK. So there are all kinds of opportunities which you can read about by looking at casting, going to Backstage or your Actors Equity website. There are other ways you can find out audition notices. But also some of the other major theater towns like Washington, D.C., Chicago, and even Los Angeles have thriving theater. People will laugh at me describing the Los Angeles theater scene as thriving, but there's plenty to audition for when it's going. I have a lot of friends who just pursue theater in Los Angeles. And they all have auditions, and you can go to audition for any of these places. Certainly New York's going to be the biggest. You'll have a lot more opportunities when things come back. But that's, briefly, that's the kind of thing. There are also cruise ships you can audition for. There are all kinds of things that you will see advertisements for, people looking for talent.
Yeah, definitely a lot of opportunities, and it's good to know that it's not just New York that you have to be in. And sometimes I know they go cast in places even like Canada. They go to Canada to cast shows as well, especially for shows where they need something super specific, and it's like it's hard to find people that we need. So let's just go everywhere and try to cast.
I would also like to add, Julia, that more and more now people are auditioning online, and I think when we come back, you'll find that's going to be proliferate, and there will be more and more auditions where you submit a video audition where they're not necessarily having auditions in person. There's nothing like seeing somebody in person singing in a room with us behind the table. I don't think that will ever completely go away. That's going to be slow to come back, I believe, until we're safe, until things are good. So I think there will be more and more opportunities to audition online with a computer, filming something at home. And the biggest advice I have to you is to look right in the camera. See where your little light is on your computer and play to the camera rather than playing over here or over here or over here, because it looks like you're not looking at us. And whereas on stage, in an actual audition room, you don't want to look us in the eyes because we're looking up and we're getting all nervous because you're looking at us.
Yeah.
Some casting directors, very few, some directors will say, can you please sing right to me? The late Martin Charnin, who directed Annie, who wrote Annie, said, will you please sing right to me? And people go, what? Okay. But he was one of the rare ones. Most people say, please, they don't say anything in the audition, but they don't want you looking at it because we want to be able to look at you and observe you without knowing that you're looking back at us. But on a video audition, because we don't see you looking at us, I think you should look right at us. And you can ask Michael Lavine, but I believe most casting directors are saying, we want you to look right at the camera and play to us there. And don't look at us the entire time. Sometimes you want to look over here, and then come back to us. There's an important point you want to make, but don't be glued to the camera. But I think you do play to the camera.
Yeah, I guess there's a fine line between just like staring into the camera at all times and like looking into the camera and like acting to the side a little bit.
Like if I'm talking to you, I'm not going to look you in the eyes the entire time.
Exactly,
so yes, I'm going to a movie tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to the store. I'm going to a movie. I can't wait to see you. But you wouldn't look at somebody figure out what you would do naturally and do that on the screen.
Doing what comes naturally, right?
Film yourself and watch it and say, oh, that's ridiculous. That doesn't look real at all. The best thing about a video submission is you can do it, watch it, and go, that's terrible, and do it again until it's right.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I love about video auditions. But at the same time, for live auditions, you kind of just go in, you sing, and you're done. And video auditions, you're like, oh, my right eye looks weird in this one. Let me re-record the whole thing.
Right.
So it's like there's pros and cons of everything, I guess. All right, moving on with, let's ask our audience another question. So we asked you guys about the favorite musical. Now, another question we always ask is, what is your dream role? Whether you have played it or not, let us know what your dream role is. And if you comment, then you get entered into the draw. And for Michael, now that we've talked about all the different theaters and types of auditions, let's go into Broadway auditions now. So once you're in the audition room, you've talked about how if you're non-union, you might have to wait all day and never get seen. If you're union, you can actually make appointments. If you're EMC, somewhere between union and non-union, you're better off than non-union, but not as good as union. But once you're in the room, how does it work? They usually call people in groups of 10, or is it groups of 5, or is it 1 by 1, or is it different? And then once you're in the room, what can you expect?
Very good question. Usually it's not more than one person at a time. There are auditions where they bring in a group of people. I've heard of auditions where they have like 10 people, and the musical director will say, each person sing a cappella just 5 bars. I'm going to keep 1, 7, and 8. Everybody else go home. That's rare, but that can expect. You never know what's going to happen, so don't let anything be throw you when they say something that you're like, and always bring other material. Like if you're going, I said this last time, if you're going in for a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, but they also happen to be casting a country western show or a Motown show, bring your whole book. They may say, I know you were auditioning for Oklahoma here, but we're doing this R&B show. Do you have anything R&B? You'd be like, no, I only brought my Rodgers and Hammerstein book. Figure out, have everything with you, because you never know when something like that's going to happen. Usually, you will know in advance where you're going, what time you're going, and what you're supposed to sing. Whether it's something from the show, they will say you can sing from the show. Or they will say, please do not sing from the show. I don't think you might necessarily want to sing from the show, because they might have their own preconceived notions about how the song should go, acting-wise and vocally. And if you don't happen to bring what they thought, they'll be like, well, obviously that's not right. That's not what I would have done with the song. And if they're smart, they'll give you an adjustment, see if you can do it the way they want you to do it. But I would bring your own material that's evocative of the show. I said last time to bring in what you call the cut song from the show, make it so right for that part, that audition, that character, that we go, wow, that's our character right up there. So you want to sing, always know the entire song, because many times they will say, just bring in 16 bars, which means 16 measures. It doesn't have to be the first 16 measures or the last 16 measures, just the best 16 measures, which you work with a coach to find the best cut of the song to know what you want to show yourself. Try to find an art, it's hard to find in a short cut of a song, a beginning, middle, and end. But if you can find something that will show who you are in some basic sense of character. They have hateful 8-bar auditions. The reasons we have 8-bar auditions at shows, I think, is that sometimes we have 500 people auditioning, and we have 10 to 5, 10 to 6. And let's say at 5:58, we've seen 496 or 490 or 450 of those people. And somewhere in those last 50 people is the perfect person. We weren't able to get to them because people were taking up too much time. We just weren't able to get to them. So that's why we type. That's why we ask for 8 bars, so we can see more people in that time period and be able to get more people under our noses, so we can say, that's the perfect person. I want to see that person again. When Rent first opened, they had auditions where they had all these different rooms with all the different staff members of Bernie Telsey Casting in each room. And each person would go in and sing a cappella, something of their own. And they would say, okay, you're good. Let's have you come back this afternoon. They would bring people back. But that way they were able to see the people who were lined around the block for two days, all got in. Everybody got in to be seen, even if they just sang a cappella for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes and they were gone, and if they weren't good enough, we can tell usually that you have something that we'd like to see more and see you with a pianist. But you will go in, sing your best 16 bars, 32 bars. Sometimes they'll say a brief song. When they say a brief song, that doesn't mean your paper should go all the way out like this. That means a brief song where you have a beginning, middle, and end. Ideally, you don't want it to go above maybe 2.5 minutes if it's really entertaining and interesting and fun. If we're being entertained, 2.5 minutes will go by like that. But if it's a very slow ballad, and A, you're not the greatest actor, and B, your voice is okay, and you're going on even for 16 long bars, it's going to be death for us. And we're going to be like, oh my God, that was terrible. So you want to really try to limit yourself, try to show your best who you are. Really show them who you are. That's what people are all obsessed about, showing how high they can sing. I won't say it's not important to show your range, but we don't necessarily need to hear a high note. If you have your range on your resume, we may ask to vocalize you, but we don't necessarily need to hear that high note. If we hear something generally around there where your veins aren't popping out, and it's clear you can sing that 8 times a week in that key, we'll know you have that range. We know you're not lying about it. So don't lie about anything in your resume. I've been at auditions where somebody will have something on a resume and the person behind the table was in the show they're claiming to have been in. And they're like, wait a minute, how did you do that show? I was in that show. I don't remember. You said, oh, well, I left before it opened. You're like, no, you didn't. I was in it. So you don't want to be caught in a lie. Don't lie about anything at your audition, because you're going to get caught and it's going to not be good for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's one way to be remembered. A lie on your resume, and then everybody's like, remember that person who lied?
Right. That's the thing.
Not a
you
good
also
way to
want to get too confrontational with us. I have a person who had done a very good production of Cabaret once, and he came in for an audition. He was Candide in the Hal Prince Candide in this 1970s, the revival, Al Prince's first revival, first production of Candide that Al Prince did in the 70s. Mark Baker, who came in for an audition, probably should have named him, whatever. He came in and he got really close to us at the table. I was at the piano, but he came up really close, up in their faces, and they were terrified. They thought he was going to leap over the table and start attacking them, and they were freaked out. So you want to really keep your distance. Don't get that close to somebody behind the table.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I love hearing funny stories, funny audition stories. It's the best. Yeah, and everything you said about Broadway auditions is like a flashback back when the auditions were alive. I've only auditioned for Broadway twice because I used to be based in Chicago. I auditioned for Frozen on Broadway, and they did what you said. They had everybody sing a cappella first, and then those of us they called into the next room in groups of 10, meaning we were all lined up in a group of 10 behind the door, and then you'd get let in one by one, but everybody could hear how you're singing anyway. And then you sing with the accompanist. So yeah, that was a great experience. And then I also auditioned in New York, and like you said, it was I was non-union back then, so non-union stuff was cut down to 8 bars. So I walked in, sang for like 15 seconds, and walked out. It was just so weird, but I guess it's part of the gig, considering that I also woke up at like 4 a.m. that day to sign up on the unofficial list. By 6 a.m. I was number 7 on the list. I was like, seriously? What time do people get up? It's crazy.
This is a tough business, and you have to be willing to do things like that until you get an agent and you get appointments. But the idea of 8 bars, I think of 8 bars as 15 to 30 seconds. I think of 16 bars as 30 to 45 seconds. So if it was only 15 seconds, you might have been able to push it if it's a really fast song, and each bar is like 1, 2, then 8 bars is going to be 8 seconds.
Yeah.
But if it's a slow 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's 1 bar, then 8 bars is going to be 15, 20 seconds. I think as long as it doesn't go on too long, I will let anybody do whatever they put in front of me at an audition, unless clearly they're taking advantage of me and trying to push it. But if I know it, I mean, I played auditions in the past where we are doing 8-bar auditions, and I'm letting anybody put in front because I know it's moving. We're moving fast, and we're still able to get through a lot of people. Sometimes the people on the table said, "Michael, you're being too indulgent. You got to speed it. Don't let them be so taken advantage of you." But if they're not taking advantage of me, I will let. But there are a lot of pianists who will be like 6, 7, 8. I'm stopping right there. You'd be like, "That's going to last around 6 seconds." And he'd be like, "But that's 8 bars. We said 8 bars." I'm like, seriously? Well, I said, you look behind the people behind the table, my song's a couple more bars than 8, but it runs 15 seconds. Is that all right? They're going to be, of course, that's fine. And that way they've been given permission. The pianist has been given permission to play what he has. They're not going to yell at him, so he'll play what he has in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're right, if you're singing an up-tempo song, 8 bars is nothing. If it's a ballad, then you can have like 2 bars, and that's already like 15 seconds.
Right.
So it's like, depends on the time it takes, I guess.
Exactly.
Now, I was going to ask you something else to follow up, and I forgot, so I'm sure I'll remember later on. But before I forget to ask the audience the next question, everybody watching, thank you again for tuning in. And for those who are just joining us, I saw just new people just join us now. We are doing a draw for a coaching with Michael. And in order to enter the draw, you've got to answer the questions in the comments under this video. So our next question is, what is your strength as a singer? So are you a belter? Are you a classical singer? Can you do both? Are you more contemporary musical theater, classical musical theater? What do you like? What can you do? What's your strength? Let us know.
Maybe you're acting, maybe?
Or if you're an actor who sings, which is also a thing, or an actor who dances, or a dancer who sings, etc., let us know. There's a lot of different combinations, I guess, for this. And then Michael, so we talked about the audition room for Broadway shows. Now, if you get a callback, if you're lucky enough to be one of those people who gets a callback, what is that like? How many people usually get called back? How much time do you have to learn the callback material? And what's expected of you?
Well, the casting director is given a day, or sometimes they set aside an entire week for callbacks, where sometimes they will bring in people who were not able, stars or people who had agents who were not able to make the week of auditions. So callbacks are also going to include often people who weren't at the original auditions who were moved right to the callback. But if you were called back, anything could happen. There's so many different scenarios. The usual scenario is that you'll be given some material to learn. You'll be given a song, sometimes 2 songs, sometimes 6 songs, sometimes some scenes to learn also. So that's when I suddenly get frantic calls from my students saying, I've got a callback and it's in 3 days. Sometimes the callback is the next day and you are required to learn a new song. Sometimes I've had students come to me with a stack of material and they say, I have to learn this over the weekend or overnight. So you just have to work as feverishly as you can to learn what you can learn and be ready for them when they come back. Sometimes you are not given material to learn. Sometimes they say, please bring in what you sang before. We want to hear that again to remember. You should always know that, remember the song you had. They might ask for that again. Sometimes they'll say, bring in something else. We just want to see you do something else in your book. Sometimes they'll give you a specific subject. They'll say, please bring in a country western song. We didn't hear that from you and we need to hear that. A specific category, any category. When they were first auditioning Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, they knew David Yazbek had not finished the score yet, and he was working on a song. It turned out it was a song called Oklahoma, which was sung by Sarah Gettelfinger originally. And he knew it was like a specific country song. And I had 3 or 4 different dancers. They all came over together for joint coaching because they were all called back, I think either to understudy or to play that role. And they all had to learn this song. It's a famous country song, but it's been 15 years and I don't remember what it was. But they all had to learn that song. I remember that. So sometimes they give you a song that's like the song they need to learn. You never know what's going to happen. Callbacks could entail learning a new dance combination, learning sides, learning scenes. So just go with what you're given and work to try to remind them why they fell in love with you in the first place. Remember, if you're called back, they like something about you and you just have to further their impression, make them realize you are the perfect person for the job.
Now, for callbacks, they say, different people say different things, but for callbacks, they sometimes say that whatever you did at your audition, whatever you wore at your audition, however you looked, just do the exact same thing at the callback because that's what they liked. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the same thing I was saying about bringing in the same song. You want them to remember everything they liked about you first. So you wore something, unless they tell you to wear something else, I would wear what you wore the first time. They go, that girl with that lovely dress, remember that dress? Oh, we loved her, right? Rather than wearing something or changing your complete look. I had a girl who was going in for the national tour of Copacabana, the Barry Manilow show, and she came in with no makeup, kind of looked not kind of a dowdy dress, and they were like, but they knew her and they said, trust us, she's wonderful. They called her back. They said, to call back, doll yourself up to the nines, put all the makeup on, make yourself look fabulous, and she got the lead role. I mean, I think it's easy to say she got it because she's great, but if you go in, you always want to look your best. Go in with full makeup and everything, unless you're auditioning for somebody who's not supposed to look like that. Like the famous story of George Hearn auditioning for the original production of La Cage aux Folles. He decided to go in dressed up as Zaza. He dressed himself up like a woman for the heels and everything and went into the audition that way. And they realized he could do it and they cast him.
That's an interesting story. Now I'm just going to check quickly the comments. So guys who are watching, thank you for letting us know the answers to the questions we're asking. You're all being entered into the draw. But if there are any questions you'd like to ask Michael, make sure to put them down in comments as well, just because we do only have about half an hour left. So we want to make sure we get to as many questions as we can. Now, the next question for the draw for the audience is, let's go along the lines of your strength and ask you the following. What is your voice type? So do we have sopranos, basses, baritones, tenors, altos, mezzos, whatever? Let us know. We'd love to know. And for Michael, you did go over the callbacks. So I guess next is, well, actually, you know what? Let's mention this. Sometimes there's more than one callback. Well, usually there's probably more than one callback, especially if you're being paired up with someone, right? Sometimes there's like 6 callbacks, especially if it's a new show.
After a certain number, they have to start paying you. But yeah, there are people who've been auditioned, called back and called back and called back. Certain directors just keep wanting to see people,
Mhm.
and they haven't made up their mind, and they'll wait a little bit, time will go by, and you think you didn't get the job, and you get a call, you have to go back in again. And that's true. And sometimes you're given new material to learn. Sometimes you don't even know why they keep calling you. I had a girl who went in for a production, a major production in San Diego years ago, and she was a student of mine. The people behind the table knew that she had coached with me, and they said, look, we really like her, but we're not sure about the pitch and her voice. Can you send her to a voice teacher and have her work with? So I sent her to a voice teacher. She went back and she got the job. So strangest things happen behind the table. Sometimes you're not privy to them. So many times you don't know why you weren't called back or why you were called back. You just know for some reason we liked you, for some reason we didn't like you. It could be so random why you don't get called back. So you can't get upset about it because you never know. There's something stupid. They hired the producer's nephew or many stupid reasons why you don't get. But if you felt you did a good audition, accept that it was a good audition and move on. It's the hardest thing to hear because I have a fairly well-known television star who went in for a major Broadway show. We played the audition for him, and it was clear, I think they already had somebody in mind for the role. It was the lead role, the title role, and he did fine, but it wasn't good. And they said thanks, and he left the room. He really thought he was going to get the job. And he left, he couldn't comprehend that he hadn't get the job. And he went back in, which is you never do. He said, can I do it again? They said, no, really, it's not going to change our mind. Couldn't hear it. He kept calling his agent. He wanted to go back to the audition. He couldn't. You have to get it through your head. If it doesn't happen, if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. You're not going to change their minds.
Yeah, that is frustrating though, especially when you think, oh my God, I got it for sure. I gotta get it.
You know it's your role. You say, this is my role. If there's ever a role, it's this show. This is the show I have to do.
Exactly. Yeah. But sometimes also it's happened to me before where I think, oh my God, that audition was terrible. Like they probably think that I can't sing or act or move, and I was terrible. And I get a call back, and then I get cast. So like, and then sometimes I'm like, this was amazing. I'm pretty sure I'm getting the role, and not even a callback. So you never know.
Absolutely. I'll tell you another example. Heather Parcells, wonderful actress, dancer, was auditioning for the revival of Chorus Line for Judy Turner. And Judy Turner's the flighty one. Number 17, Judy Turner, that's me. Oh, that's me. And she got to the audition, and he was at the piano, and like dropped all her music. It was like all flustered. And they looked at each other and they went, that's Judy Turner. She could have sang Happy Birthday. They knew she got the role. It didn't matter what she could have sang. 2 notes. They were like, as long as she can open her mouth, they saw that they knew she could dance. She inhabited that role. And they just saw it from what she did at the piano before she even went out to sing. So you never know. Sometimes we just see something, we go, that's our character. As long as they can sing, they're in.
Yeah, I mean, that happens too. And we discussed this with Michael Casera last time too, for casting. He said his main tip was to just keep going in and doing a good job. Keep coming prepared, and they'll remember you as the prepared actor. Even if you don't get the job, if you do a good job every time, eventually they'll be like, oh, it's that actor who is really good every single time, and now we have the right role for them.
Absolutely. In fact, sometimes I've heard many tales of people who say, I can't get arrested. I keep auditioning, and they always say, you're wonderful, you're wonderful. But they never cast me. And then they do cast him finally, and they say, we've been trying to find the right job for you for months. You just keep coming in and doing excellent work. And you came in, and we were like, that was the job. And you get the job finally. You're like, but I've been auditioning for years, and you've never cast me. So we've been trying to find. So just accept the fact that if they tell you you're doing a good job, take it. Just keep doing it. As Michael said, do the work. Show them you're professional. Show them you're constantly prepared and consistent and always right there with your work. And you'll eventually get your job.
Yeah, the best advice ever. Although it can get kind of frustrating. We all know as actors that you keep doing a good job, or at least you think you are, and then you never get cast. But eventually it happens. Eventually you get cast. All right, before we go on, next question for the audience. Let us know where you guys are based. I think it was Dan who commented in the comments that he already knows Michael, and actually Michael recommended a song for Dan, with which Dan got booked a Broadway gig. So I'm assuming, Dan, you are in New York, but if you're not, let us know. And the rest of you guys, let us know where you are at too. For the draw, it doesn't matter because most of the coaching is via Zoom as well, so you can be in, I don't know, Germany for all we care, and you can still win the draw. So let us know, and if you let us know, you get entered into the draw. And then for Michael, next question. So once we're through with callbacks, say you get cast in a show. What is the whole process? What does it look like? Is it usually like most shows I know audition like 6 months beforehand? Sometimes it's like a year beforehand. Sometimes the show is in like 2 weeks. I'm not sure if that ever happens with Broadway shows though. How much time do you have to learn the material? What's expected of you at the first read through or sing through? Are you supposed to know all the music? What does that look like?
Well, I would never think you need to learn the music unless they tell you for the first rehearsal, because you've got a musical director there specifically whose job is at the beginning to teach you the music, or an assistant musical director, associate musical director, whose job is to teach you the music. So I don't think you need to go in. They will have a first table read where you're sitting around a table, circular table, and they will read all the dialogue. And then somebody will, unlikely to be the cast, will sing the songs. Because if you haven't officially learned the songs, they're not expecting you to sight read the songs because you haven't worked on them with anybody, unless you'd had time to work with them with somebody else. But we'll do a basic read, so you have a sense of the through line of the show and know where the songs fit in and how it goes. And then the cast, the director will, and the choreographer will set, or the musical director will have separate rehearsals. The choreographer will work on the dances, the director will work on the scenes, the musical director will work on the songs, and you're each working with each of these people. Typically, a Broadway show will rehearse for around 5 weeks. That's pretty normal, I think. 3 to 5 weeks, usually 5 weeks. And then they'll preview, where they make changes, continue making changes. During those 5 weeks with a new musical, you're going to find new songs, cut songs, new scenes, new direction, new move, new lighting. Everything's going to change until opening night. And with the regional show, or any show that's existed before, you may not find new scenes, but you may find they may change their mind about the way they're directing something, the tempo of the song, something may change. And with regional theater, if it's a show that pre-exists, that's like Grease, you know how it goes. You're not going to change, you're not going to cut songs, add songs, change the songs. But you'll still have the same situation where you work with the musical director to learn the songs and work with the director to learn the scenes and block the scenes and stage the scenes and work with the choreographer to work on the dances. And then you put it all together and they'll eventually have run-throughs, and finally they'll have a tech rehearsal and a dress rehearsal for your invited friends, and then you start performances in front of an audience. And then the show opens and you run. And once you open, you're unlikely that you're going to make any more changes unless they pay you and you decide to do that. Is that roughly what it sound right?
Yeah. That answers the question. I mean, I've been in shows that were both union and non-union that ranged, the rehearsal process ranged like a lot. I've never been at a Broadway show, but other shows I've been in, sometimes you get cast and then the rehearsal starts in like 2 weeks and it's the first sing through. Actually, when I played Sophie in Mamma Mia, that's what it was like. And I didn't really know that show at all. I mean, I was familiar with the songs, so the callbacks.
Were you expected to know the songs the first day of rehearsrsal?
Well, we did the song, the sing through, which, I mean, they didn't expect us to get it perfectly, but you know, and I'm always paranoid about this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just gonna learn everything just in case, because I'm like, I want to be prepared. But yeah, and usually, even if you do have a sing through, usually then you have time to go over each song and with the music director, so you can know what they want from you, pretty much. Now, is there, I guess it's hard to say, but is there an average time frame or like amount of time that you spend on songs at rehearsals, or like songs or scenes? Is it if it's like a solo song or versus a group song? I'm assuming the chorus numbers get more time just because there's more people involved.
You mean in rehearsal?
Yeah, in rehearsal, because from my experience, usually when I played lead roles, they kind of like just expect you to know stuff. So you go in, you're like, okay, let's run through the song, make these changes, okay, done. Let's move on to the chorus songs, and then they spend a lot of time on that. What is Broadway like for
As
like
a musical director, I will be sitting at a production meeting with the director, the choreographer, and the stage manager, and they will say to me, we're giving you time with the singers, with the performers. How much time do you want per song? And I will say, okay, that's an ensemble song that has harmony. and it's difficult, and there's 4-part harmony, and I really need time to, these singers are good, but I want time to be able to teach properly, so I need a good hour for that. But then I'll say, okay, there's Honey, Honey. It's an easy song. I think I can teach that in 10 minutes. I don't think it's difficult. There's not really any harmony. They probably know it. I just want to run it a couple of times. It's short. Or I could say, there's I Have a Dream. Also an easy song. You know it. I know you're going to learn it. You probably know it already. It's not any harmony. It's an easy song. I would need, let's say 20 minutes just to make sure I have enough time to run it a couple of times. So I would go through the whole show with every song, picking how much time I need for each song, and then they'd add it all up and put it together like that. I think that's what they do for Broadway too. I mean, you can ask somebody who's usually directed on Broadway, but I believe that's what they do. They're also given time every day in rehearsal. The stage manager controls they have 3 rehearsal rooms. The director's saying, I need this time to do this scene. Choreographer says, I need that actor there. Then you need that actor to teach them that song. They don't know the song, they probably can't do the dance, so let's make sure the songs start first. So it's all like a little jigsaw puzzle that we're putting together to make sure everybody knows everything in the right order, that you're not trying to learn a dance of a song when you haven't learned the song yet. So we have to think about that. It's less involved with the scenes, because the scene work doesn't involve knowing the songs and the dance necessarily.
Yeah, I guess lots of coordination too.
Absolutely,
required there.
Definitely.
All right. Well, for our audience, actually, I'd like to mention this one thing. It's kind of interesting when we asked people where they were based. We got a lot of responses, and we have people from a lot of places. We actually have someone from Australia watching right now.
Yeah. Australia.
Yeah, that made me think. It's like, what time is it now in Australia? Oh, okay.
It's probably tomorrow morning. But
yeah, it's morning.
Did I tell you this last time, Julia? For the past 10 years, I've gone to Australia twice a year, every year, for the past 10 years.
Oh, for your master classes, right?
I teach at all the conservatories in Australia, and I have so many friends there that I love in the theater business. The girl playing Elsa in Frozen in Sydney stayed here in my apartment right before I was it Anna? Who sings Defying Great? Who sings Let It Go? Is that Anna or Elsa?
Elsa.
Then Anna stayed here in my apartment when I was in Australia a year ago, last March. She was here right before you couldn't travel anymore. And now she's playing Anna in Frozen in Sydney, and it's a big success. And it opened. There's theaters running in Australia. You know, it's all back, come from a ways back there now.
Yeah.
So, hello, Ozzy. Nice to have Ozzy's here watching.
Yes.
Fun.
Speaking of Australia, actually, Tess is from Australia, and Tess is saying it's 12:43 p.m. on Friday.
Yep.
So it's
15 hours, right?
Yeah. Wow, what a difference. Yeah. I've always wanted to travel to Australia, but I don't know if the time difference is going to...
Eventually, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I traveled there actually on February 28th. So on February 29th, because last year there was a February 29th, I was in the air, and I missed February 29th completely because I arrived in Australia on March 1st. So, because you lose a day going over there.
Yeah, I guess it can get confusing because it's not just the time difference, it's also like the day difference.
With like the 1 year we had February 29th, and I missed it because I was in the air through the whole time. I missed the whole thing. The favorite thing was when I went over on New Year's Eve, and we spent New Year's Day in all these different time zones. They said, okay, now it's New Year's Day here, now it's New Year's Day here, now it's New Year's Day. Now you've arrived on the 1st in Australia, so that was really fun.
You get to celebrate a lot of times.
We did, yes, it was fun.
All right, now before we forget to ask the audience another question again, for the draw, you guys have been great with responding to all the questions now that we've discussed Australia and everything. Let's get back to shows. So what was the last show you guys performed in before this whole COVID madness? Let us know in comments, and if you let us know, you get entered into the draw. And then Michael.
I'd love to know what you think. Before you get that, I'd like to know what you guys think about a term that was very popular in the 1980s and 90s. People still use it today, but I don't think it's as relevant today as it was back in the day. And that's when you were asking Julia about their voice type. Tell me how many people said they are barytenors. For me, a barytenor is like a man-woman. I'd say own your baritoneness or own your tenorness, but you can't be both. You can say, well, I go low, I go high. So say that, but where are you essentially? You're either a baritone or a tenor. With Les Mis and Saigon and shows like that, that's where the term came into being. But I feel like today it's not really relevant. It's a strange term. So did anybody say that they were a bari tenor in your answers
We've
there?
had a couple. I did not read all the comments to this yet. I know we had a bass baritone.
I love basses. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, this
I know
one's-
last time we had a few bari tenors here. I guess that's the easiest way to describe that you're like a tenor, but can also hit low notes, or baritone. And
I
can
would
also
say
hit
that.
high
I would
notes.
say I would say a baritone with an extension up, or a tenor with an extension down.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say bari tenor because it's like you don't want
Because
to
which
commit
one
to,
are you? Yeah.
you don't want to commit to being a tenor. You have to say, where are you most comfortable? Well, I can do anything. I know you can do anything, but where are you going to sound the best? And we had to pick.
Yeah.
We don't want you to say, tell us to decide. We want you to decide whether you're a baritone or a tenor. So that's what I'm telling you guys. Decide if you're a baritone or a tenor in advance. Don't make us try to figure out which you are when you say just a baritone. Does that mean we put you with the baritones or put you with the tenors? We need to know where you're going to land. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like I am a soprano, like 100% soprano, but I can also hit low notes.
Well, that's
Which,
great.
but I don't sound my best at low note. I can hit them, but it doesn't mean that I can do like a whole alto song and sound good doing it, kind of thing, you know.
You can sing an alto song and not sound like a soprano. You can sing it and have a nice mixy little voice. That's great. Not a lot of people. Some sopranos can't do that. That's very valuable.
Oh, you were asking me. Well, actually, yeah. To be honest, I'm not very good at doing low notes. I can reach them, that's for sure.
No, but I mean, can you sing a song without sounding like it? Like every song sounds like I could have danced all night.
Yeah. You mean maybe different styles? That for sure. Yeah, but as a high soprano, I personally don't have that beautiful chesty sound that down
like
there sounds.
Altos don't have the high soprano voice,
Yeah, and I mean,
it.
I know some altos who do have that chesty voice and can also reach high soprano notes. It doesn't mean they're comfortable there or their voice likes it, but they have that extension, like you said. But yes, you guys, for the draw, because we kind of went on to another topic for a bit. For the draw, let us know in comments, and I'll make sure to put all your names in the draw every time you answer a question. So Michael, actually, to go back to Australia, Tess from Australia is asking, let me just read the question from here. Tess is saying, I'd love to ask Michael what he recommends a new graduate should do to get an agent during a pandemic. And then Dan from Orlando added to that. Dan says, to add on to Tess's question, should new graduates get an agent upon getting to New York City?
Well, this is a whole different time now, and it's going to be harder to get agents because agents aren't eager necessarily to update their roster, although a lot of people in the business are quitting the business. People who have been in the business for a very long time and are getting discouraged, they're telling their agents, we don't want to be in the business anymore. So agents are looking, in some respects, to add more people to their roster so when things start up again, they have a good supplement. If they're realizing that a lot of their clients are leaving the business and they've lost some clients, they might be more concerned and anxious to get more people. So both in Australia and for Tess and for Dan, I would suggest that you contact these agents by mailing your picture and resume to them, or even emailing them. You ask them, see on these agents' websites whether they are accepting submissions and whether they would prefer them to be emailed or to be mailed. And if you mail a picture, photo, and resume, it's a lot cheaper, I know, to just email it. But then they might want you to mail a reel, mail a example of your singing or something showing your acting, so they see who you are and they say, wow, this is somebody great, I want to. There's some great agents in Melbourne, some great agents in Sydney, Tess. I don't know where you are, but I would contact both of them and see who you know. Ask your friends who have agents if they would recommend you. I'd say the same thing to you, Dan, if you're recently out of conservatory. You can get some recommendations for material for agents. Somebody says, oh, I've got an agent. If you have friends who are successful in New York, say, who's your agent? Would you be willing to recommend me to them? I get asked that a lot about whether if I'm coaching somebody who's wonderful and they say, will you recommend me? Sometimes I say, yes, I think you're great. Use my name. I won't say I'll recommend you. I say, but use my name, because a lot of my agent friends here say if you send me somebody, I'll know that means they're very good. So I will do that if they're good and say, then they'll either have you come in when you can, people come in, have you come in and sing a few songs. You'll bring a pianist. Sometimes they'll have a pianist on staff. Sometimes they hire me to play for the whole evening.
Yeah.
And then they will potentially hire you. And then sometimes they'll freelance with you and send you out on certain things to see how it goes. And if it goes well, they might then say, okay, we're ready to hire you, to sign you to a contract. Sometimes they'll be willing to sign you right away. Another thing you want to know about is agents versus managers. A manager is above an agent. Agents is probably all you need for theatrical jobs, but a manager, once you get really successful, a manager can field you to different agents for TV and film. They might have certain connections that an agent doesn't have. You might not necessarily need a manager. In most cases, you probably don't, but sometimes a manager will find out about you and pursue you. Just something else to keep in mind. Go back to you, Julia.
All right, thank you, Michael. Now, before we go on to the next question, another question for the audience. Let us know who your favorite Broadway actor is. Actor or actress. Or if you don't have a favorite Broadway actor, maybe you have a favorite film actor. Let us know. And if you let us know, once again, you'll be entered into the draw. We're almost at the end of our stream, so we still have a couple of questions for Michael. Now, we've discussed the rehearsal process. We've discussed the callbacks. Now, could you quickly go over the actual performances? So when it's the opening night, everything's ready to go. We're performing, everybody's happy, everything's great. But do Broadway shows usually still rehearse? Because I know some contracts are like a year long. Are you still expected to attend rehearsals? And maybe also if you can compare the understudies versus the actual leads. And who's expected to go to which rehearsals, how many rehearsals they're expected to attend, stuff like that.
Well, I'd say that a Broadway show can rehearse you anytime they want. But most shows don't tend to. They tend to have understudy rehearsals, usually on Thursdays. I think that tends to be a common day for rehearsals for understudies. And usually every week, because you never know when an understudy has to go in suddenly with no warning. And usually the understudy rehearsals don't start until several weeks into the run of the show, until the show feels like it's a well-oiled machine and they can now take time out during the day to have some understudy rehearsals. But they want to know you're ready, so they're going to be rehearsing you every week so that you can feel very ready when you go in. There's also something called the standby. The standby is somebody who is covering a lead role and doesn't necessarily have to be at the theater. They have to either have a beeper or a cell phone, be nearby the theater. If suddenly the lead actor gets sick, they can go on very quickly for them. Usually they have to hang out at the show for the first 20 minutes. And the understudy would be somebody usually in the show who would also be covering the role if the understudy gets sick, the standby gets sick. But you usually won't be rehearsing the show unless there are certain exceptions where they just want to somebody will come in, the director will come in and say, oh, it's very sloppy. We need to clean up. We need to have a cleanup rehearsal. They could schedule a rehearsal anytime. You're never going to know. But that doesn't happen very often. Many times shows just keep running. If they're going well, and you're doing good work every time. But I've heard tales of shows where the director sees it and goes, oh, this is terrible. Everybody's getting sloppy. They need to really pick up their pace, figure out what's going on, and re-rehearse. Then there are shows that will change. For example, I bring up the Scarlet Pimpernel. They called the Scarlet Pimpernel opened and closed 3 times and moved theaters, and they called it version 1, version 2, and version 3. Because they cut songs, wrote new songs, redirected it, re-choreographed it, restaged it, new actors, everything changed. And the actors were rehearsing one version of the show during the day and performing the old version at night. And they asked the actors, they were totally confused. So you never know, things like that can happen. And they're just paying you your regular salary. I don't think you're necessarily getting any salary then, because that's the way things go. That's the exception, very, very rare, but it does happen. That's pretty much how rehearsals go on Broadway.
All right, thank you for that. Another question for the audience. If you could stage any Broadway show, so not as an actor, but as, like, this is your show, you're maybe the producer or the director, or even you're doing the choreography, maybe you're doing everything. If you could do that, which show would it be? If you could be on the creative team side of the fence, I guess. And then for Michael, since I think we've covered most of the points, we do have a couple of more questions from the audience, which we'll address in a second. But before we go on to that, can you just maybe go over the main points of how to do your best as an actor on Broadway? So I know you've talked about how to do your best at auditions, and we've discussed that a lot. But when you're rehearsing and performing, once you get the gig, how do you keep the gig? How do you be that actor they want to hire again?
I think by being professional, doing your best and knowing your lines and just showing up on time and really doing the work. There are people who are sloppy and lazy and don't show up. They call out when they're not really sick and they get caught. You never want to do things like that. You want to be a professional. You should be, there are people who think of this as a true business and it's a job. And yeah, I understand that, but you still have to have a love for it. And I think you need to inhabit the roles. If you're playing a role on Broadway, you need to know, if you obviously you want to know your lines and know your lyrics, but I think you should know what the character would say in any given situation. So if for some reason a terrible thing happens where you dry, you go up on your words, up on your lyrics, up on your words in the script, you know what the character, what the situation is, and you can just put it into your own words and just say it. What the situation, know how to get yourself back on track. So be so invested in the show that everything just comes to you naturally. I mean, once you feel a show is in your blood, and you know the choreography, you know the staging, you know the entrances and exits and your lines and your lyrics, and you can just do it like it's second nature. Just really show up. I mean, they said, what is it? Spencer Tracy, I think, said just know your lines and don't bump into the furniture, you know. But I think it's, which is a funny way of putting it, but I think just do your part. Just really, really inhabit the character. Know who your characters are. Just and be yourself. Bring a little of yourself into everything you do, because that will show to us. We will see. We want to know who you are. We want to know that you can play this role and inhabit this character. And some of the greatest actors, you can say, boy, I know you personally. I didn't see any of you up there on stage. But I think always bring a little of yourself into every role. I think it's always a good idea to do that. I think we will appreciate that. Audiences will appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and your fellow actors will appreciate it.
Yes, and we also had, as I'm reading the comments, we had a comment from Dan, who is a casting director for Disney. And Dan mentioned that one of the things you can do as an actor is, well, work ethic. Work ethic is super important. So
that's
thank you,
Dan, for that. Yes, it's a job, but it's a job you should feel passionate about. And knowing that you show up on time, are responsible, that's going to stand. Having that work ethic is so important. Good, thank you, Dan. It's so true.
Yes, and thank you everybody for answering all the questions today. We're going to ask Michael one last question from Lisa. She asked this a while ago, so I want to cover that. And everybody else, last question for the draw, last opportunity to be entered into the draw. Let us know what else you would like to discuss during these streams. So people have asked things like discussing headshots, resumes. Obviously, casting directors and agents are very important. Everybody wants to hear about from casting directors and agents. So maybe I can have a word with Dan so we can hear about the casting of Disney for everybody, for all of us Disney lovers. But let us know in comments what else you'd like us to discuss, and we'll do our best to find people to go on here and be the guest stars or guest speakers. Now, Michael, Lisa asked, well, actually, let me summarize this. Maybe we can combine it with another question someone else had. Lisa's asking for when she's submitting on Backstage, or I guess any site for to get into a musical. She's asking, do I record one song or am I submitting a vocal reel with various songs? Also, is it okay to use the karaoke accompaniment on YouTube for your accompaniment? And speaking of accompaniment, maybe you can cover that as well, since you do accompany as well.
Sure, excellent question, Lisa. I think it's going to be different for every show. I think whether you are going to give them a reel, very unlikely you're going to give them a reel. Most of them will want to hear something specific. They will say, give us a song of your own, give us a song from our show that we're submitting to you to learn and sing for us. But often it will be something from your book. We just want to get a sense of who you are. And if you're going to use a karaoke track, I would make the karaoke track just piano. There are so many companies out there, apps and websites that provide accompaniment. There's a great one, piano tracks, audition tracks, auditiontrax.com. It's my friend Tom Grieve out of Los Angeles, and he's very cheap. It's like $4.95 for a song, and he has them in any different key, any arrangement, anything he doesn't have, he'll do already, but he has tens of thousands of songs already on his site, Audition Tracks, T-R-A-X, AUDITIONTRAX.com. That's probably one of the best out there. So, but if it's just piano, you can get with more elaborate, but we don't want more elaborate. That's why we only have pianos at auditions live. We only want to hear piano for your audition because it's going to overpower you. So if you get a karaoke track, make sure it's just piano. Often you can get a karaoke track with just piano online on YouTube. Fine. But I think that's what you want to do. Unless they ask you to send you your whole reel, I just send them what they ask you for.
Yes.
That helps this.
Yeah, I personally also, I always have the question about reels. So I personally just send obviously the audition video, and I have someone record the audition tracks for me because I have specific cuts and stuff like that. But I also always include my demo reel in case they want to see more. I say something like, if you'd like to see more of my work, here's my demo reel. If they want to see it, they click on it. If they're like, I just want to look at the audition, they can choose to just do that. And Lisa, and for everybody else who's interested, regarding audition tracks and accompaniments and stuff like that, we're actually going to have Matt Eisenstein, who is an accompanist, and actually I think his most recent show is Frozen on Broadway, since we talked about that show, and he's a conductor and also an accompanist. So we will be discussing the accompaniment side of the audition and working with your pianist and and maybe we can also cover the video auditions then, just because we can't cover everything in 1 hour today, unfortunately. So
and
tune
Matt's
in.
a very dear friend of mine for many, many years. I've known him since Matt. I can tell you a quick story about Matt. You can ask him about this when you see him.
Yeah.
I saw Matt when I first got to know Matt when he first moved to New York when he was a kid. He got a job playing in a pit of a production of Dames at Sea off Broadway, and the little girl who was playing Ruby, I was like, she is wonderful. What's that? She was brand new in town, little Kristin Chenoweth. I don't know whatever happened to her, but she was very talented. So you can ask Matt about working. I actually stayed in Matt's apartment once when I was renovating my apartment. So I know Matt really well. He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. Why am I not surprised you know him? I mean, I've talked to him obviously, and I mentioned you, and he obviously knows you as well. So I feel like New York is a theater community in general. Like everybody knows everybody. Yeah, and if you're Michael Lavine, you literally know everybody, including Kristin Chenoweth.
I've done 2 shows with Kristin. You can get the CD, $1 Billion Baby.
Oh, nice.
A long time ago.
Yes, we've still got to discuss that cheap music we've discussed of Kristin Chenoweth's arrangement. Maybe I can ask her if she can give it to me. Anyway, hopes. All right, so I think that we are pretty much ready for the draw. Let's see, no more questions that we left unanswered. So Michael, before we do the draw, can you, I know we're out of time pretty much, but can you quickly go over any other tips, anything else regarding Broadway auditions or rehearsals or anything, like any tips for the actors that they should know? Anything you recommend, kind of thing.
People remember what you're auditioning for and make sure you're singing the right song. Use a coach. People don't go to coaches a lot anymore. And I think you really will learn going to a coach. I'm not saying it has to be me, but go to some coach, somebody you trust, somebody you respect. And if you're working with a voice teacher, make sure it's a voice teacher you feel it's worth your time and money. Any coach or voice teacher would say, look, if you don't feel you're getting any worth out of me, go to somebody else. Make sure you're feeling like you're spending money that's worth it to prepare for your auditions, and really do prepare for all your auditions. Don't go in, the worst thing is to go in not really knowing what you're gonna do, because we'll see that and we'll go, why would we cast him? He obviously didn't do any work to get ready for this audition. Do the work and show us who you are. Can't say that enough. We really wanna see that in that first audition. That's my biggest advice.
Thank you for that, Michael. Thank you. You always share so much useful information. Even like, I know some of my questions are just super general, and you're like, okay, here's a step-by-step analysis of what you just asked. And I'm like,
You
I
ask questions. I love them.
yeah, I thought I knew a lot about auditions, but like some of the things you say, I'm like, really? I'm so glad I have you on here because we're all learning a lot.
My pleasure.
Yes, so thank you again for doing this, and thank you everyone for watching. We will go through all the comments to make sure anything that you guys comment on the topics that you'd like to cover, we'll work on getting those together. So we try having these a few times a month. The stream with Matt is coming up on the accompaniments on the 25th of February, I believe. But check this page to make sure. It should, if you follow the page, it'll remind you every time we go live or every time there's a new event post. Or you can also join our group, our 1 hour series community, where I post every new event, and that way you get reminded every time there's a new event to make sure you don't miss anything. I send the link, or I put the link in the comments under this video. It's, I believe, the first comment, so just scroll up if you'd like to join the group and click on join. And hopefully we'll see you on February 25th. And after that, we have a choreographer joining us to talk about dance auditions. I know we've been wanting to do that for a while, so we finally have somebody joining us to answer your questions about dance auditions. So stay tuned, we'll have a lot more coming. Now, Michael, it is time for the draw. We have 26 entries. So pick a number from 1 to 26 and we will choose the lucky winner.
17.
17. Number 17. Oh, I gotta scroll up for this. Oh my gosh. Number 17 is, now I'm going to mess up your name, I'm so sorry, but our Australian friend, Tess Shacklock, I believe.
Hi, Tess.
And thank you, Tess, for participating in the draw, and congratulations on winning. And I hope you can find a time to Zoom with Michael. I know the Australia versus New York time frame can be difficult, but Michael's been to Australia before, so it'll be great. Now, everybody else, make sure to tune in next time. We do a lot of these draws. We don't do a draw every single time, but we do them a lot of times, and people like Michael share their expertise and donate their time for free coachings. We all know that it's, not the easiest time for us actors right now. No contracts, no jobs, or low-paying jobs, stuff like that. So we always love helping out the community. Now, if you'd like to share the video, by all means do that. The more actors see this, the better, because Michael has shared a lot of useful information. So invite your friends if you'd like, and if you'd like, join us again. We hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, and thank you so much, Michael, once again for everything. You are amazing. I appreciate it a lot. All right. Good night, everybody. And Tess, make sure to message this page, and I'll put you in touch with Michael to arrange your free coaching. Congratulations again, and everyone, have a good night. Bye.